before I start, I'll just explain. If you hear a slight, it's probably not even slight, it might be really loud. If you hear this fan going on from my computer, I'm trying to be as far away from it as possible so it doesn't pick it up as much. But yeah, the fan on my computer is going absolutely ballistic right now, and I don't really know what to do about it. So if you hear that, I apologize and wish me luck on that, and that it doesn't just break my entire computer. So there was two conversations that could have been had about Steph Curry coming out of the NBA Finals. I think it was a foregone conclusion. If the Warriors win, Steph, I mean, it has to mean that Steph is Finals MVP, right? They weren't going to win the Finals with Jordan Poole being the best player on the team. So, the conversation since they won is he the best point guard in NBA history? The conversation would have been, if they lost, oh, well, did Steph Curry need Kevin Durant to win those two finals in 17 and 18? We can talk about Kevin Durant later because he looks like the ultimate bum after this finals, but that's another topic for another day. Conversation with Steph Curry versus Magic Johnson. I'll give my 2 cents now. I think the edge has to go to Steph. But here's what I will say. What Steph Curry does for the Golden State Warriors, Magic Johnson would never be able to replicate with any other team in NBA history. He wouldn't be able to do it. With that being said, what Magic Johnson did for the Lakers in the early 80s and late 80s, Steph Curry would never be able to replicate with any other team, whether current or in NBA history. You switch those two guys around, I don't think either of their franchises win NBA titles because each one of those guys was so integral, was so a major piece of their own franchise that you just can't see them really. I can see them being successful, right? I can see them maybe winning 1 or 2 championships in their career. But winning multiple 4 championships apiece for each one of these franchises, I don't know if either guy does that if you switch them in their places. Now, where I give the edge to Steph, and I don't want to make this all about championships because I hate when the conversation only becomes about championships and accolades in general. I will say, Magic Johnson had an easier time winning the finals than Steph Curry did in his 4 finals attempts. I get it, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the first 3 times that Steph Curry won a finals, he A, didn't win a finals MVP, and B, was going against a Cavaliers squad that just was not very good. But guess what? The entire Western Conference through Steph Curry's entire career has been completely loaded with not just top-tier talent, but top-tier teams. You're talking about when Steph Curry starts his run, he is eclipsing the dynasty that is the San Antonio Spurs. He is dismantling the Lob City LA Clippers when they put together that team, and it was championship or bust for that team. They took down the Houston Rockets, a team that had a MVP in James Harden when he was playing at the top of his career, and we were considering him possibly one of the best players in offensive basketball history. They had Chris Paul. They had a good team in Houston. You're talking about a team that they beat this year and before in the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that before had a bruising defensive team with Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, Tony Allen, Mike Conley, and now the new generation of that team. It's not great. I don't think it's as good as that team used to be with the grit and grind Grizzlies, but I think that's still a really good team with a possible MVP candidate in John Morant, who didn't finish the series but still was a factor early in it. The Denver Nuggets, we possibly are seeing the best, most versatile big man in NBA history. I can go on and on and on with the teams that Steph Curry has had to face in the Western Conference. And that's not to say that Magic Johnson didn't have to face anybody great in the West, but I think a majority of the rivalry that Magic Johnson had in his NBA career, I mean, it was Bird and Magic for a reason. We're not talking about Magic versus anybody in the Western Conference. It's Bird and Magic. And technically, the conversation of the past decade has been Steph versus LeBron. I mean, it still happened what, 5 times, right? 4 times. So it's kind of like, both guys have their own rival, and I would say that the rival for Steph, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about LeBron versus Bird, but they're probably comparable, and they're probably on even playing grounds. LeBron's probably lost a little bit of momentum in that conversation the last year and a half, but the conversation could still be had between LeBron and Bird. I will also say, Magic Johnson had such a what's the correct word? Magic Johnson had the pleasure, and no shit, he had so many assists. He played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar from the beginning of his career. Magic Johnson has played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was firmly in place in NBA history at this point as one of the best players and would end up breaking the scoring title. Michael Cooper, who was an incredible player, both defensively and offensively. They get a young James Worthy in '82. They have Bob McAdoo. You can just look at the roster yourself, compare any roster that Magic Johnson played with their finals team, and compare it to Steph Curry's team. I would consider a team with Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy to be probably able to beat the Golden State Warriors even with Kevin Durant. Because who's guarding... Okay, let's just take it play by play, right? Who's guarding Kareem? You're really going to have Draymond guard Kareem? I'm not even saying if you put Kevon Looney on Kareem, it's a good idea either. That's the sort of thing that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar presents to that team, is an unstoppable force. I don't have the number in front of me, but I'm sure a vast majority of the assists that Magic Johnson gained throughout his career with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a majority of those assists probably came from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, the conversation around Magic Johnson, it does get hurt by the fact that he does have to stop playing basketball for 4 years because of his illness that he gained. But that's not his fault. And I think if I'm going to say that for Magic, the 2 years where Steph Curry and the Warriors were not a good team because he was injured, Clay was injured, and Draymond was playing on a team that it was him, I don't think those 2 years matter either, if I'm going to be fair. So compare the two guys. It was easier for Magic Johnson to win with the Lakers. And again, I don't want to make this all about championships, but if Magic Johnson doesn't play with the Lakers, do we consider him the greatest point guard of all time at this point? Because if you put him on the Clippers, you put him on the Bucks, you put him on a team that doesn't have 3 other Hall of Famers pretty much still in their prime, or in James Worthy's case, drafted and, gained momentum with the LA Lakers, are we still talking about Magic Johnson this way? Steph Curry not only has played with teams with other greatness around him, he's played on teams like this team this year, where he was considered the only guy on the team. And he still destroyed the Boston Celtics, a team who had the Defensive Player of the Year playing at Steph Curry's position, Jaylen Brown, who's an incredible wing defender, Jason Tatum, who when he wants to be is an incredible wing defender. The rest of this, Robert Williams, who's going to be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate for the next 5 to 6 seasons. Like what Steph Curry did this year, there's not a year where you can look at it for Magic and say he was by himself, he was the de facto only guy on the team. Not only was he the guy on the team, he showed up and showed out against the Defensive Player of the Year at his position. And you got to remember, Michael Cooper, when he was with the LA Lakers, I believe at this point he had won Defensive Player of the Year a couple times with his time in with the Milwaukee Bucks. So it's kind of like, do you see where I'm going with this conversation and why I'm giving Steph Curry the edge? At this point, I think the conversation is stupid because I think the conversation is talking about 2 different guys who play 2 completely different play styles. And before I see the comments talking about, well, Magic Johnson should be the better point guard of all time because he played in an era that was tougher and he played in an era that was stronger and bigger and blah, blah, blah. The average player in 2021 to 2022 was 6'6", 215 pounds. The average guy from the 80s all the way up until about 2002 was 6'7", 205 pounds. So there's no difference, and if there is a difference, it actually is in favor of the current generation in terms of having bigger guys. And guess what? To the older generation, just because you had guys that were wrestling on an NBA court does not mean you have a stronger generation or a tougher generation. It just doesn't. You just played like idiots, and people let you get away with it. So, yeah, Steph Curry has the edge over Magic. I don't think it's that big of an edge. I think, and like I said, I think the conversation is stupid in the first place. But I think when you consider everything that I've said, I don't see how you really can get to any different conclusion other than Steph Curry is probably the best point guard of all time. Now, if you put the two of them against each other, could Magic Johnson probably defend Steph Curry better than Steph Curry could defend Magic Johnson? Yeah, probably, but that's exactly my point, is these two guys don't play the exact same kind of game. Steph Curry probably wouldn't be guarding Magic Johnson if the two teams played against each other. Magic Johnson probably wouldn't guard Steph Curry, because asking Magic Johnson to run around with Steph Curry for 35 minutes a game is probably not a good idea on the guy who's running your show, and that's why the Boston Celtics, they weren't going to put Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum on Steph Curry because they relied on those two guys so much on the offensive side of the ball. So going forward, I'm going to consider Steph the number one point guard of all time. You should too. You don't have to. Honestly, I think the conversation is stupid, but that's just my 2 cents on the idea.